Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Nashville State Senator Heidi Campbell. We're talking about issues in education that are quite a bit in the forefront here in this session of the General Assembly. Senator Campbell, Governor Lee also wants to expand the number of charter schools. I think he'd like to have as many as 50 new ones. Charter schools have become sort of a part of life, especially here in Nashville. Now, they've always been controversial, but why not add 50 more?
Well, you know, charter schools are not necessarily such a bad thing. We do have some very good charter schools, but I have a problem with charter schools in a regressive state like Tennessee, where the money is taken off of the top of the public education system for the charters. And moreover, we have pretty good data that shows us that charter schools don't usually succeed. So we have a couple that are good, but for the most part, the incentive that charter schools have is not a good incentive for education, because it's a private incentive, it's a business incentive, and we need to fully fund our public school systems so that we're not actually prioritizing charter schools.
I suspect your concerns also grow in the fact that the governor in his bill wants to take away more local control, more local approval of those. In fact, after the school board rejects enough charter schools, they can go directly to the state. They can already go right now, but usually they have to go on an individual basis. But now they can go directly, if this bill passes, and get state approval and bypass having to go back to the school board.
That's right, and you know, that's part of a bigger plan which you know, cannot be overstated, that the governor really inevitably wants to privatize our entire public school system. And this is just a part of that. You know, it's a part of the whole DeVos plan, and he's made it very clear that that's what he would like to do. And so this really takes away the ability of Davidson County to make decisions about how our kids are educated.
This controversy particularly focuses on a college up in Michigan called Hillsdale College. They, under the governor's plan, I think would take over a goodly number of those new slots for charter schools. What kind of reputation do they have? Obviously, you have some concerns about them.
Yeah, I mean, the Hillsdale College format is alarming. It's really propaganda, and it's consistent with the other laws that we're seeing in the legislature, which want to rewrite history, which want to focus on American exceptionalism, and quite frankly, you know, are racist and patriarchal in nature. And so I think that the governor is very much ideologically in line with that and would like to see that happen. And then moreover, I think the financial component of it is very attractive.
The governor seems to think Hillsdale's pretty wonderful. I mean, he spoke about them quite at length during his State of the State address. He particularly likes the way they teach history. You don't.
No, I mean, I think that they very clearly state, they're very honest about what they think. I mean, they have something called the 1776 Project. That's the foundation of their history program and their main focus. And it's basically been created to combat the 1619 Project. And it basically is about whitewashing history and not discussing the complicated issues that, you know, really force our children to think critically.
You know, for so long, people have criticized the fact that there's not much civics training at all in schools. Now there seems to be a fight over what kind of civics training ought to be offered at all.
We are in this ideological battle, and we're dealing with a lot of misinformation, and I think people are really caught up in that right now. And, you know, inevitably, if we look at history, we know that it never works to ban books, to hold back information. The more informed we are, the more educated we are, the better we are prepared to make decisions.
Governor Lee is also proposing a bill, and he talked about this in the State of the State as well, to give parents more information, more oversight, and more input into what he calls age-appropriate textbooks and age-appropriate books in the library. Do you have a problem with that? That would seem to be, yeah, parents ought to know what their kids are reading, and what they read ought to be age appropriate.
Yes, of course, and I think that the librarians and teachers are doing that now. What it really amounts to is a very small group of parents deciding exactly what our kids can and can't read.
You mean, what will this bill let them do? Be able to go to the school board and get them to remove those things?
Yeah, exactly. I think that we're looking at bills right now for them to be able to a parent can just bring up a book that they don't like and take it directly to the school board, and the school board can decide to remove it.
They can't do that now? Parents aren't allowed to do that now?
Parents could actually take something to the school board and ask them to remove it, and they could consider it now, but this is sort of trying to codify that process.
There's also a bill that would ban obscene textbooks and I guess library books as well from schools. I thought obscenity was already defined in the courts. Why do we need another law on this?
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. I mean, that we don't have obscene books or textbooks.
How does this law define obscenity? Because you had a lot of people up there saying, yeah, we need to do this because we got a lot of pornography and things like that in our schools. Is that right?
Well, no, and some of the presentations that the people were making just simply weren't true. I mean, they were talking about books that didn't have what they said they had in them. So.
And this is not just something that's happening in Tennessee. You say this is part of a national effort. Tell us what that's all about and where's the money for that coming from?
This has been about 4 decades in the making. I guess the overarching body that's supporting all of it is the Council for National Policy, but it's you know, a group of people who in the Reagan era decided that they really didn't want people taking over our country and our economy, and especially people of color and people from out of our country. And they decided that they wanted to make sure that they were going to take control financially and politically of our country and prevent that from happening. And we are seeing the culmination of that here in Tennessee. This is really ground zero for it.
State Senator Heidi Campbell is our guest on Inside Politics. She's a representative here in Nashville. Back to continue our conversation about education and other issues up on the Hill after this break.